Good evening. I want to go ahead and call the meeting to order. We will have a short work session prior to our business session. So the work session is regarding Stony Creek Villages, Track 1, Unit 1, Block 1, Lot 2B, and Green Space Lot, Stony Creek Development, LLC, and A&R Contractors, LLC, development plan for 112 apartment units. Okay? Is there someone to speak to this issue?
Hello, my name is Patrick Sowers. I'm representing the Stony Creek Village apartments. We proposed 112 units. There are 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. I think that was the intended original use of in the PUD, that this area was designed for apartments. I don't really. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? I know we were consolidating the green space into it because kind of it had been such an eyesore for so long that we were including it into the development and cleaning it up and fencing off the pond and that kind of thing. And we also agreed to take over the maintenance of the pond and for future.
So just to add from the staff perspective, we did have a development review team meeting on the 14th of September. They are requesting one variance or waiver that we need to talk about. So that is, so we have the requirement that there's a 10-foot buffer consisting of trees at 40-foot intervals and either a 6-foot hedge or a 4-foot fence for that buffer from basically an R3 or apartment use to single family or duplex. So we do have single family or duplex all the way around. And it didn't show it on your all's development plan, but in the construction plans, there's a landscaping page. And I do need a little clarification on this. So we actually have shown the 10-foot buffer. So this is the green space that we talked about in a previous meeting, that we agreed to allow them to develop a small portion of that green space in return for long-term maintenance of, so what'll be happening is cleanup and restoration of the pond. They'll put a fence around it. They'll maintain all of this green space. And we did that so that we could tie that long-term maintenance of that in with this particular development. So, so on the buffer, they're showing a 10-foot buffer along the green space side, but where it abuts these are all duplexes. Where it abuts these duplexes, they are proposing a slatted fence there.
Correct.
So that would be a variance from our regulations that they would be requesting, just on basically 2 sides of the development. And then, Patrick, this is not really clear, are we putting the trees and everything in this landscape buffer that's required?
I think so. I think at the top there, it's more of just a open drainage ditch right now.
I just missed that. So
Yeah.
here's sorry, it's sideways, sorry. But here's the trees and the hedge that go in there. Okay, yeah, I just missed that. So basically, that'd be on the south and east sides.
Okay.
And then, they would also need a minor plat to consolidate those 2 lots. So these are these are 2 separate lots currently. And we would need a minor plat, and I'm sure they were waiting on the development plan to be approved for the minor plat, just to consolidate. So that's just a formality to get this all this development on 1 lot. And then, of course, from the staff perspective, we just, again, want to make sure, we will require them to sign a long-term stormwater maintenance agreement with the approval of this development plan.
The slatted fence, how tall is this slatted fence? And
6 feet.
It's 6, yeah, we thought it was a better privacy than the landscape buffer, to be honest. Because behind those duplexes is a concrete driveway, or the majority of them. And it seemed to be a better solution. I think on that plan too, there's actually some more parking than is required.
A lot, yeah, quite a
There's
bit.
quite a bit more parking than is required. So I thought this is the best fit for what we proposed.
any other questions from commissioners?
One real quick. So with the, I guess, the landscaping and the fencing in that agreement, are we also, they're gonna maintain that till whenever, all of it? So for example, if the fence gets torn down, or if some of the landscaping needs to be trimmed back, or whatever?
It's part of the project, so
Part
we
of the
will take
project.
care of it.
Okay,
On the single-family sides where all the landscape buffer and the trees are, right now it's just kind of, well, the last time I was there, it's just kind of overgrown, so.
all right.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Yes.
I'm still unclear what the variance is for, and what is being asked and why.
So the requirements say that you have to have a 10-foot buffer. And in that 10-foot buffer, you have to have trees, and you have to have either a fence or hedges. So we just, a line of shrubs with trees, or a fence and trees. And what it does and so the two sides that it's on is, if I can get my mouse to work here, is a little section on this side here. So basically to the south of, to the south of there, and then along, oh, well, look at that. Let me just do it that way. So I was wondering why my thing wasn't working right. It wanted me to draw a line. So basically is that about right?
That's about right.
Okay. And so instead of providing the 10 feet there, because it backs up to these duplexes, let me get my pointer here.
We kind of thought the privacy fence would offer a little more separation than a tree and a shrub.
So, Martin, these are now duplexes. It doesn't show that in my aerial, but these are now duplexes.
Just think
So
it's
basically providing a fence,
a little more
6-foot
definition.
fence in lieu of the 10-foot buffer on the, I keep saying, oh, it is the west and the south sides, sorry.
So this is going to come a waiver request, which will come to planning and zoning. That's not determined right now.
Correct.
In the business session, okay. Other questions, comments?
And I probably would call it a variance in this case, just because he is varying from that. We don't want a complete waiver from it. We want to
Okay.
provide something in lieu of.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if it appears that I wasn't paying attention, but you're also talking about agreement for long-term water runoff management, is that correct?
Correct.
Would that also be something that have to be put into?
We don't. I will probably mention it just to capture it in the minutes. But again, just because we did allow the green space to be developed in return for the long-term maintenance. But that would be part of the point that they get a land disturbance permit to actually start work out there. We would require that long-term maintenance agreement.
Trust me, she won't let me out without
I
signing.
don't let anybody out with
Okay.
So in the event that it's sold in, say, 10 years, does that agreement still follow?
It follows
It's
the property.
perpetual.
Okay, okay.
And it's actually a recorded document. So they get recorded at the courthouse, and so that if anyone were doing a title search on that property, they would be able to find it and see that they have some responsibility.
And then you're combining 2 lots?
Correct. So minor plat to consolidate, there's basically a lot line right here where that dark area is.
Okay.
So to consolidate this lot with this lot.
Lots of things.
Thank you.
Is that it? Anything else for our work session? All right. I'd like to call to order the Berea Planning Commission business session for Tuesday, September the 26th. I recognize any visitors for anything that is not on the agenda. Okay. All right, we'll have our minutes of August 8th. That was a long meeting, I think.
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as approved, or as submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we accept the minutes of Tuesday, August 8th, 2023 as presented. It's written. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next is old business. One is Oliver Properties, DBA, Central Park Subdivision Phase 1. The bond expired October 17th, 2023, in the amount of $27,475, and they're requesting an extension for 1 year.
Madam Chair, I'd like to abstain from discussion and voting on this item, please.
Okay.
So this is approximately 24 vacant lots. This is for the sidewalks only of about 24 vacant lots along Central Park Avenue and Bronx Place. And the staff would recommend the extension for the same amount for another year.
Okay. Any questions from any of the commissioners? Okay,
Are any of these lots being developed right now?
Nothing has happened in the last several years on these particular lots.
So how
So-
long has this bond been outstanding?
Quite a few years. Oh, well, so again, the streets are accepted, and the bond would be for the completion of sidewalks. So, you know, obviously, we're hoping, just like those other ones, that we've narrowed that list of old letters and credit down quite a bit. This just happens to be one of the ones that we just haven't seen any action or activity in. So it is quite old.
They do maintain it though, don't they? I think they do.
They just mowed the lots.
I was thinking, yeah.
They did the lots just got mowed.
Okay. Any other questions? I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we extend the bond, Oliver Properties, Phase 1, expiring October 17, 2023 to October 17, 2024, in the amount of $27,475.
I second that.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and second that we extend the Oliver Properties Central Park subdivision Phase 1, the bond expiring October 17, 2023, to extend it to October 17, 2024, in the amount of $27,475. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Our second old business is Lester Stewart, Fincastle subdivision. Letter of credit expiring October 11, 2023, in the amount of $210,950, and they are requesting an extension for 1 year.
So I did speak to Les Stewart,
Please.
and the final plat for Fincastle was signed in 2021. And if you all will remember, we actually give them 5 years to install their sidewalks and get 75% built out. So because it's only been 2 years, we really just need to extend this, give him a little more time, just so you have an understanding though. He has a total of 50 lots, so he would need to be built out on 38 to be able to reduce this bond and for us to accept the streets into our city maintenance. He has 31 lots built on, so he has a few more to go before he can ask for any kind of reduction or take any other action on this.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to extend the letter of credit, Lester Stewart, Fincastle subdivision, expiring October 11th, 2023, in the amount of $210,950, 1 year, to expire October 11th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved in second that the letter of credit for Lester Stewart, Fincastle subdivision, expired October 11, 2023, will be extended for 1 year to expire October 11, 2024, in the amount of $210,950. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, we now move to new business. The first item on the agenda is Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 2, Stony Creek Holdings preliminary plat. Who's speaking to that?
Thank you.
Okay, this is
My name's Kendall Wise, and I work for Vantage Engineering, and of course, we're working with the developers and the owners of the situation. We put together a preliminary plat that generally conforms with the planned unit development that was created for this entire neighborhood. As far as we know, we've developed a plan for streets, sewer, water that all conforms with the standards of the subdivision regulations for Berea. I think for the most part, everyone was here for the work session, other than maybe Mr. Mark Richards. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that have come up since then. And unfortunately, we had to put the preliminary plat on 2 pages in order to get all of the information. So you're encumbered, but having to flip back and forth, but it should all be there.
So again, we had a work session on this 2 weeks ago, and it has received all the technical approvals from our development review team.
Any questions or comments from any of the commissioners?
should we make one more comment about the pavement depth? I think we talked during the work session that there would be a waiver of the pavement depth for the one street, because the subdivision regs require a certain pavement depth for a collector street, and we have this one street that runs through the property that has been deemed a collector, I guess, since the PUD was created, but prior development closer to the highway used a lesser pavement thickness, and it seems to be performing fine, so we're asking that lesser pavement thickness continue to be carried toward the back of this development on this street, so it would be a waiver, I guess, of the pavement depth for a collector street on the one street, and we've shown that on our construction plans, and I think it's noted also on our cross sections for that street. Somebody will have to help me with the names of these streets, I can't.
Brant, so Stony Creek Way
Yes.
and Branch View Drive.
Yes, so Stony Creek Way would be the collector street.
Yep, so Stony Creek Way, actually, of everything from the original, let's see, and you've got a little section out here on Winding Branch Drive, I think, too, don't you, right here?
Yes.
Okay, so this section of Winding Branch Drive, from the entrance, was built probably 15 years ago. And, so I tried to look at the as-built. I'm a little unsure how that was constructed. But in previous, approvals from about right here on Winding Branch Drive, it has been constructed with, 3 inches of base and 1.5 inches of surface. And, which is a normal neighborhood road. And, that's also been the case for, much of Stony Creek Way from about where that little pinpoint is. From about that point on has all been constructed that same way. And so what they're asking for is just to be able to continue that pavement thickness in this new development, this kind of circle here.
Technical review is fine with that.
They were.
So it sounds like we'll need a motion for the preliminary plat with a waiver. Is a waiver?
I think a waiver for, let me see what they call those roads. Just to get the language in there.
I really think that only Stony Creek Way would be considered
Oh, you know what,
potentially a
that's right.
collector street. So the other streets are all minor streets, so we don't feel like we're asking for any kind of a variance for those streets or a variation from the subdivision regs. But if you assume that Stony Creek Way is a collector street all the way, through this new development, then
So the way you have them labeled, you have the 60-foot right-of-way as a major collector, and the 50-foot right-of-way as a minor street or minor collector.
okay.
So what we would be asking for, just in this particular one, to keep the same language, that the major collector pavement thickness would be allowed to be constructed as a minor collector.
Correct. That's perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Comments from any of the commissioners?
As far as this thickness goes, if they're already doing that on one part of it and it's working fine, there's been no issues, that's, shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah, we've accepted, I'm getting confused now too. Winding Branch is the 60-foot right-of-way, is that correct? Or she
No,
said Stony Creek Way?
Stony Creek Way.
Okay, so we've accepted all of Stony Creek Way to this point right here into our city maintenance.
Actually, even beyond.
That would be even beyond that, that's right, actually to right here. We've accepted all that into our city maintenance, and we've not had any issues.
Okay.
The Stony Creek, has it got a final coat and everything on it?
Okay, commissioners? Questions, concerns? Motion? Martin?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the preliminary plat of Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 3, Phase 2, with a waiver that, for the major collector of Stony Creek Way to be constructed as a minor collector.
Just for pavement thickness.
Yeah, yeah.
So width is,
Correct, just
Yeah.
related to
just for pavement thickness.
payment and DGA.
Okay,
I had that word in there, but I
so, all right. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. It has been moved and second that we approve the preliminary plat for Stony Creek subdivision, Unit 2, Phase 2, Stony Creek Holdings, with a waiver for Stony Creek Way to be constructed with minor depth,
Minor collector pavement.
minor collect, yeah.
Yeah,
It's a-
sounds good.
Minor collective, collector, collective,
Collector
OR.
OR.
OR. Depth, DEPTH, okay.
Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right,
No.
thank you.
Good, all right. Okay, all right, we got it. Melissa, make sure she has it correct in the minutes, don't be a problem. All right, second is Stony Creek Villages, Track 1, Unit 1, Block 1, Lot 2B and Green Space Lot, Stony Creek Development and A&R Contractors, Development Plan for 112 apartment units.
Sure.
I'm back. So as we said, we talked about this in the work session a little bit. I'm not sure what else we can add to it. Help, Amanda?
I think as a recap, we want to, so it's a 112 unit apartment complex development. And they are seeking a, variance for the 10-foot buffer, or to install a screening fence in lieu of the 10-foot buffer on the west and south sides. And, that a minor plat, needs to be, approved, needs to be recorded to consolidate the two lots.
Now, do we have to do the minor plat tonight? We don't.
They'll submit it.
Because it's two, okay. And that's, all right. Yes, there was a lot of discussion on this, Mr. South. All right, questions or comments from any of the, commissioners?
So by combining the two lots, does that make them responsible for the maintenance and everything? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry, yes? Yes. Would you come, I'm sorry, would you come up to the mic and give your name?
My name is Barbara Hall, and I'm a resident at 537 Sapphire Drive in Stony Creek. And I have some concerns about 112 more units being added to that part of Stony Creek. Well, and I have concerns about more buildings or more houses being built in Stony Creek. There's one entrance into Stony Creek, and only one. And I live in the back of that subdivision. If there's an emergency and I'm trying to get out, chances are I'm not gonna get out. There's a roundabout in that subdivision that is not used as a roundabout. And a lot of the residents go left when they should be going right around the roundabout. And where these apartments are being built and where the new duplexes have been built, people are they have to go into the duplexes now off of Stony Creek. So they're gonna go left, and I'm coming off of Wildwood, and I'm gonna go right, and I'm gonna run right into them. So that's a concern. When we were here on August 8th, the concern was brought up that the turn lanes off of Richmond Road, and we were told that they would be started hoped to be started the week after Labor Day. We're now several weeks after Labor Day, and there's no indication that there's going to be a turn lane into the subdivision done. And I have a concern of having 112 more units, which means at least 112 more vehicles trying to get in and out of Stony Creek with only one entrance. And I understand what was told before was there was going to be some kind of a possibly another way to get in and out for emergencies. But that doesn't help on the day. I sat on Wildwood today for 10 minutes to turn left onto Richmond Road to come to this meeting. And with cars behind me waiting too. So I have a lot of concerns about having 112 more units put in, as well as how many ever more have been approved for the back, which I'm not sure about. So that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hall. There are others?
I'm Judy Ball, 325 Wildwood Way. When I first decided to build here, we were told that all of this area was going to be green space and there wouldn't be any building on it. So that was one reason why I bought there. But as you know, more and more they're wanting to build everywhere around us. But my concern is, with this apartment building, what is that going to do to the value of our homes? And so that's one big concern I have. The other is right now, it's very stressful to try to back out of my driveway on Wildwood with all of the construction coming down through there, fine. And like she said, even trying to get out, coming especially left, to Berea. But also, the one entrance is, and she said we would have 112 cars. Well, most likely these days, everybody has two, so it'd be 224 more vehicles. But the value and thing of our homes and things is what I'm concerned about.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ball. Anyone else?
Amanda, what's the latest? Have we heard anything from the state on the turning lanes or?
Yeah, a few things. And Madam Chairman, I did bring the original PUD layout just to show how everything was zoned and kind of the original proposal for Stony Creek, if you think that's appropriate to show.
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay. So on the turn lanes, I don't have a construction start date, but I have verified with the state that there is a permit in place. So just because I hadn't heard anything else, I wanted to reach out to them. So they have verified that there is a permit. And so that means that the plans are approved and they have a bond on it. And as you all know, we have basically put a restriction on this little phase at the end of Brook Cove, that we would not approve that until turn lanes and pavement went in on Wildwood Way. And then let me, just to kind of show, and I think this may help, it is very unfortunate that people get bad information about what's coming around them, so I wanted to just kind of pull up when the PUD map of when, it was originally approved. Just to make sure that everybody kind of understands. Now, this second entrance, again, they knew that would never happen off Richmond Road. So it was always shown, or this was really considering this one entrance, because in the minutes of that meeting, they said that this entrance would never be there. But this dark blue is apartments, and that is the area. So this is the apartments that we're talking about this evening, and a row of duplexes here. And so that is what was originally shown as the use for that area. And of course, all of these were shown, that this kind of salmon color was shown as condos, and then these areas back in the back. Now, of course, the layout's a little bit different than it used to be, but all of this area was shown as single family. And then I want to see what this blue is. This was originally shown as a retirement community over here. So at least what has been built out is at least what is the same density or less dense than what was originally approved. So I just thought that actually might even help the commission to, you know, just to make sure that we're not doing anything more than, you know, kind of what they approved in 2005.
So Amanda, where the condos had been proposed, what is there now? Houses or?
Single
duplex?
family dwellings.
Okay.
And in my opinion, single family dwellings is less dense than condos, because typically you look at condos as multi-housing units, and you're just renting the interior space. But as far as the turn lanes, I do not have a date.
Amanda, I have a question about the roundabout, because it seems that that's a major concern of anybody that's out there, and I'm curious, why was the roundabout, one, brought into the city streets, and two, how come I guess, Public Works or whoever with the city council has not gone out there and looked at it and said, okay, this is the way the traffic flow needs to be, and we need to put signs showing direction? Why have we not done that, since
So-
that has been accepted into the city,
It
right?
hasn't, though, that's the issue.
Okay,
So it's still privately owned. The roundabout itself is still privately owned.
okay.
So I actually have a tool here, or layer on my map, that shows what's been accepted into city maintenance. And so you'll see the green has not.
Okay,
So we actually the city doesn't own the streets even just past the roundabout. So the blue is what we have accepted into city maintenance.
okay, so who does own that green there then?
There's a lot of groups, so maybe Stony Creek Holdings, but I can't be positive.
I would think that the original developer still has
It is the original developer.
whoever has the original bond, I assume that's still Stony Creek Holdings.
So the bond for the pavement of this is currently tied to this other green street over here. So this is Unit 3, Phase 1. So the paving of this is tied to the paving over here. And we basically just have one bond for all of that. So we asked the developer at that particular meeting if he would get with our Public Works Department. So this doesn't even have the final coat of paving on it
Right.
yet, this roundabout. So there's, if it's gonna be paved soon, you hate to go out there and stripe it and put arrows in. If we could just put some signage up that would direct people. So we had asked the developer to contact Public Works, see if they would get some signs installed. But I'm not sure where that stands, so let me just follow up with Public Works, see if the city can get something up there at least temporarily.
Great, and I think we also asked them to mow it, because there was a mowing issue as well, with that roundabout.
Yeah, now my understanding, at least my guys in the office told me that the roundabout has been mowed and that these 2 lots up front have been mowed.
All right.
So at this time, there's, as I think as Ms. Ball or Ms. Hall indicated, that the danger of people not, without signage, people not, we're not really accustomed to roundabouts. You know, in other countries they are,
We better get accustomed to it.
but we better get accustomed quick.
Yeah, they're
But
going
I
in.
guess one of the reasons, yes, is the fact that we do need the signage. And that is something that really and truly we need whoever, even if it's a city,
Yeah,
that
that's
will
what I was
go
gonna
out there
say.
because we really could have a very serious accident out there.
Let me see if the city will get some signage up, if the developer will not.
Cause I was out there the other day and there's a stop sign up.
A stop sign on the roundabout?
That's what it
It's
looked like to
treated
me.
more, I wanna think it's treated more like an intersection at this point.
Yeah, it's not.
But yeah, it needs proper signage, there's no doubt.
Yes.
So, and everything that's going out there, we have some similar issues that keep coming up, and that's traffic, there's one way in, one way out, some of these kinds of things. And I know we've talked about possibly, is there a traffic study that may or may not happen? Do we have our own engineers who look at these things and say, you know, look, this is very normal, this is how this works, this is how this gets done? There's a development not in the city of Berea, down the street, that is very similar. I don't know the name of it, Twin Lakes maybe or something like that. And it's one way in, one way out. I have no idea how big it is but that seems to be a common theme. A lot of us regular car driving folk in our neighborhoods, we kind of worry, it's like, well, is there more than one way in and out of here? But if it's the norm, we need to know that, as a planning commission, you know, what's considered the norm. And we had a developer in here the other day, he said, you know, I'm pretty sure they're never gonna put a stoplight there because it's 55 miles an hour. Well, these things, you know, does somebody with the education level, the knowledge level of these things, is somebody looking at that to make, does that need to be different? Does that need to change? I mean, that's a state road, obviously, that's not something we decide or we make decisions on. But it doesn't mean somebody's not gonna have an accident, and somebody already has. And so those are issues that need to be dealt with, so.
So from our last meeting, well, let me kind of recap, because what tonight's approval did with the previous motion was it allowed construction for at least an emergency gate to Creston. So that at least is an option if there is an emergency, and that will be constructed as part of this section here. In terms of the traffic study, we have asked the developers, so what we've looked at and kind of what I've been talking to Planning Commission about is, as you could see on that PUD map, all of this up front, or if you look at the preliminary plat, kind of all of this up front was proposed development with one entrance. And so what we have told the developer that's looking at doing sections that really weren't ever on a preliminary plat, was you've got a limited number of lots that we would entertain approval as long as you meet the regulations. But that is a firm and hard line until you get a traffic study. And in my opinion, it is imperative that we hold our ground to make sure that that's the case. Because one thing I learned last week, I reached out to he's the main permit person for the state. And I asked him if there was a rule of thumb number. Is there, we're having this concern. You seem like the expert. Is there a rule of thumb number on how many cars can come out on a 55 mile an hour 2-lane road? And of course, then ask about the turn lanes. He verified they do have a permit, which from my understanding will be a turn lane if you're coming from Richmond, and then you'll be able to like decelerate to turn in if you're coming from Berea. And so what he stated to me was that original developments, they do require, like for the original development, they require the traffic study. But once they get that encroachment permit, that they don't always, that they're not asking every time somebody's adding 100 lots. And so that's why I think it's just imperative for us to make sure that we get that traffic study at that point, so that we know from someone who that's what they do for a living, right?
Right.
Yeah, excellent.
Okay, I just wanted to say it out loud.
Yep.
And can you give us an idea of the time frame for that, when we're gonna try to get that traffic study done?
So, from the last planning commission, what we had agreed to was, for 55 lots back off of Wildwood Way. And then after that was done, which, obviously all this will be under construction then, when anybody tries to develop any of this area back in here, or anywhere over here, that I think we have to do that before then. And that was, again, what we really kind of determined at our last planning commission meeting.
Yeah, I think we all realize that when that PUD was brought forth, it sounded like a great idea. Because we're going to be certain apartments, but also stores and all kinds of items, so that people would not have to come into Berea to get a gas station, would not have to come into Berea to get all of those amenities. But it's been taken up with houses, apartments, and duplexes, etc., versus the PUD concept that we had. Okay. Yes, Martin.
Well, again, as last meeting, I appreciate the voices of community members reminding us of this. And, at least we've been aware of this situation for a while now, right? And as Amanda says, we haven't done anything that would exacerbate it. We also have not approved any new developments in the last 5 years that have a one-way in and one-way out. I remember when Katie Berry was on this, and we had this same doggone heated conversation. And yeah, I don't. Maybe it was the norm, because there's a number of neighborhoods right in town,
Yes,
like off
indeed.
Glades.
Roselawn.
Yeah, that first time I took my daughter back to her friends, I'm like, there's a lot of houses back here. What are they going to do when the chemical weapons thing, whatever. Anyway, so I do appreciate folks bringing it to our attention, and I don't think we would ever approve these days that kind of subdivision, and we will do our best to hold folks feet to the fire to remedy the situation with as much authority as this commission has, which I think a lot of folks think we have far more authority than what we really do on it. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else?
If you don't mind, just after the meeting, if you want to just show me exactly where they need to be, I'll have to make the request for them because, you know, I mean, I work with them, but I don't work for them. But I will certainly pass along the request.
Okay. Other comments?
Thank you for that. This is how this process works. Thank you.
Any questions of me?
Did we forget
Well,
about
I'm kind of.
Sorry, Mr. Fowler.
Well, and the track, before we purchased the track, we discussed with Vanda that this was the proposed use because I didn't want to end up in a place where I couldn't get approved. Obviously, there was no point in me buying it. I know 112 units sounds like a lot, but based on the regs, I could actually put in probably another 15 or 20, which we opted not to do, simply for the density and the look. The ones with around the duplexes are 2 stories, and the one by the single family or little cottage style as not to be above the houses, looking down on people and that kind of thing. So we did take those things into consideration and not try to be as invasive. The green space, as far as we were concerned, we agreed to take it. Wasn't necessarily something that, it doesn't make my development or break it for me, but it's an eyesore the way it sits now.
Right.
So it wasn't given to us by any stretch of the imagination. So, no, and we paid more for it than we did the rest. So it, you know, we are trying to improve the area. It's not our goal to put in some things that will look and hurt the value of the properties and all. And by saying that, I mean, at the same time, you got to consider some of us are part of the developments that are going in the back. So the last thing I want to do is drive down values of homes. So if I thought that were the case, I wouldn't be putting these 100 units in. Not with spending another $3 million in the back. That just doesn't make logical sense to me. So with that being said, I mean, the apartments will be nice or they won't be going in.
Right. And there's always a level of growing pains
There is.
of having the process
There is,
take
and
place,
I
then it gets
understand
nice, and
they're
then-
concerned, and part of the thing I think with the roundabout even is if the bottom side was developed, the roundabout would, only 3 sides of it have access now. So if the bottom street was actually put in, the roundabout would make more sense for everyone using it instead of it just being a 3-sided roundabout. So that would help with that, but.
Other questions or comments? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve or not approve.
I'll give it a shot.
Please do, Martin.
I make a motion to approve the development plan of 112 apartment units for Stony Creek Villages, Track 1, Unit 1, Block 1, Lot 2B in the green space, with a variance in that in lieu of a 10-foot buffer on the south and west boundaries, that a fence will be provided. And with the stipulation that a minor plat will be executed to consolidate the 2 lots.
All right. That sounded really good.
Second.
Good. Okay. It has been moved and second that we will approve the development plan for the 112 apartment units at Stony Creek Villages, Track 1, Unit 1, Block 1, Lot 2B, and Green Space Lot. And also, and I may have had this a little bit different, a variance to install screening fence in place of the, what's it called?
Buffer.
Buffer, on the south and west boundaries. Also, the approval of a minor plat to combine those two lots. Is that it?
That's it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you. Okay. Our next item is a public hearing for 170 East Side Avenue. There's a zone change request. The heirs of Oliver Properties, Central Park subdivision. They're approximately 14 plus minus acres that they wish to have a zone change from R1, which is single-family residential, to R2, two-family residential, and approximately 6/10 of an acre that will go from R3 multifamily to R2 two-family residential. I'm sure we'll have some folks who come and speak to that, please.
And
And-
Madam Chair, on this, I'd like to abstain from discussion and or
Okay.
voting
Okay.
on this
Ben?
public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And since it's a public hearing, do we need
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Ms. Olinger, members of the commission, my name is Stuart Oles. I represent the applicants who are basically the Oliver heirs. They are asking for rezoning of about 14.61 acres of what is the last piece of the Central Park development in the back. About 14 acres of that currently is zoned R1. 6/10 of an acre of that is zoned R3. On the drawing that's in front of you, the little orange piece that is to the left up by Queensboro Way, that is the part that's currently zoned R3. What's in yellow in that triangle is currently R1. So I guess first thing I'd like to do is just make sure that we understand what we're asking to be rezoned. I know a number of you have been out and looked at the property in the last week or two, and it's all nicely mowed off. But what's mowed off is this property, but it's also a number of single-family lots that are on the west side of Central Park Avenue. So we are not asking for a zone change for the property on the west side of Central Park Avenue. Those are single-family lots that have been platted and restricted in the area there that Ms. Haney is showing you. If you all are amenable tonight to the rezoning of this triangular piece as R2, then the Oliver heirs have a purchaser who will buy that and will also buy all the lots along the west side of Central Park Avenue and all the vacant lots that are on the east side of Central Park Avenue. So what we're hoping to do is develop the remainder of what sits vacant there in that back end of this property now. Don't have to explain to you all because you've heard this before, but there are three bases for which zoning can be changed. One of those is that there's been a change in the area of a social, economic, et cetera nature that would warrant a zone change. One of those is that the request complies with the goals and objectives in terms of your comprehensive plan. And one other that it was just wrong to start with. So those first two, we believe we comply with in this case. When Central Park was originally proposed to be developed, what is now R3 at the top of your screen there on Queensboro Street was all zoned R1. Where the nursing home is now that is zoned R3 was zoned I2. Additionally, and it doesn't show on this, but to the south of the houses that are on Central Park Avenue, there has been an area to the south of that that has since been zoned R3. So we think there's been a substantial change in the area. What we're asking to do is to zone this R2. that would offer a buffer between what's currently R3 and the R1 homes that are on the, along Central Park Avenue that currently exist. The same person will be acquiring those lots that are on the east and west side of Central Park Avenue. Those folks will know before they buy a home that's constructed there what is intended to happen with this property. So if you look at Sandy's going to pull up a map of this kind of a bigger area here.
Let me see if I can turn it and rotate.
I'm glad I've got her working the tech, because I'd be lost.
You're pretty good with it.
If you could scroll up just a little bit more, Miss Haney, please. Other way,
Oh,
other way. There we
You're
go.
up.
So if you look now, basically this property, with the exception of the homes that are on Central Park Avenue coming up from Brooklyn Boulevard, is surrounded by I-2, R3, and the school. The only single-family residences that you have there would be along that Central Park Avenue area. And then the front part, of course, of Central Park is single-family residence. So we think this area has changed. We think the zoning surrounding this property, the change from R1 to R3 for the property at the top there that I understand the Carpenter family owns, the fact that it's apartments now all along Brooklyn Boulevard, the construction of the nursing home, all those things have changed this area in such a way that it would be appropriate to rezone this triangular piece from R1 to R2. I might also suggest to you that, as I understand, and you all know better than I, this development was done a number of years ago, some 20 years or so ago. And this property has sat vacant for that time, and the lots that have been platted and restricted there along Central Park Avenue on its west side have sat vacant for all that number of years. So there must not be a demand for R1 housing in that area. So for that reason also, we think it would be appropriate to change the zoning of this from R1 to R2. I know you all saw it before it got mowed and it was a little bit grown up. So in your packets that I've left all of you, there is a picture, kind of a rough depiction of what we hope to build on this property. So brick duplexes with garages that people can park in, something that families can live in and be proud of their surroundings. And we think that'd be a much better use of this property than would the grown-up area that it has been. The other basis for our request to change is that we believe that this meets several of the goals and objectives that are included in your comprehensive plan. And I've set out some of those in my application, and I'd just like to read some of those into the record real quickly. One, it will encourage infill, redevelopment, and strengthen your tax base by allowing these structures to be constructed there. It will encourage future growth where there is current and adequate infrastructure. So when Central Park was originally proposed, there were streets, sewers, water lines, all those things that were to connect through this area with the remainder of the development. And because it hasn't been developed, those connections have not occurred. So allowing what we're asking for will allow you to make all those connections, allow the flows of all those things that were intended when this development was originally proposed. As I discussed earlier, it will allow a buffer between what's the R3 property there that the Carpenter family owns and the R2 properties that are on the south end of Central Park Avenue. And basically, it will allow to occur what was intended to occur originally, and that is that this get developed in a nice, clean way that would provide housing for the folks of Berea. I just happened to see recently, and I didn't get this in your packet, I apologize, an article that I understand was published in the Berea City Press. And it has a picture of a motel on the front of it. I'm sure you all have seen it. I'll be glad to circulate it if you haven't. but I'd like to read just a little bit of this into the record, and I'd like to place it in the record also. This article says the demand for new housing in Berea is still high, as new rental units are being leased quickly, according to City of Berea Director of Business and Tourism Development, Donna Angel. Angel recently told the Berea City Council Economic Development Committee that especially true near I-75 exit 77, as housing construction continues and new businesses announce their intention to open at Berea's northwest end. Angel said new apartments and townhomes in the Harvest Commons development on Pauline Drive are being rented at a brisk pace, nearly to the point of being sold out, and houses in the Fincastle subdivision are mostly sold. We understand that the Heister, the other, I'm not familiar with all of the industries in that area, are hiring. That Heister may be up to as many as 1,150 people employed there in the near future. So allowing this will provide a place for those folks who don't or can't afford to own their own home to live, but live in a nice, clean area that a family would be proud to be in. What we ask you to do today is to allow us to rezone this 14.61 acres to R2 and allow us to build duplexes of a very similar nature to what you're seeing on the screen there.
How many duplexes would there be?
We, so this property was, Ms. Hagan, was initially platted, and there was a preliminary plat years ago done with about 39 or 40 lots on it. We would envision about 35 or 36 duplex lots on the duplex part of that. So a slightly reduced number from what was originally platted there.
The lots that are on the perimeter on Central Avenue that are R1, you're not asking for a change for those. Those will stay R1,
We are
correct?
not. Those will stay R1. They're already platted, they're already restricted, and if we get this approved tonight, the same purchaser would acquire those and build single-family residences on there. We would fill those lots as well as filling the duplex area.
Other questions or comments from the
So the
commissioners?
single-family homes that are currently there will not directly back up to the duplexes then?
There are single-family homes on the north side of Central Park Avenue, and that's where this property narrows to the left of that picture.
Okay.
So a few of those homes down on that end, well,
Okay.
those would back up to the duplex section.
And then these would be R1 lots.
Okay.
Those would be R1 lots, which we
Or
would
they
develop,
are currently.
and would make those people aware that they are going to be buying a home that will back up to a duplex area before they ever purchased.
Would there be some kind of buffer between the single family and the duplexes?
I don't believe your ordinance requires a buffer between duplex and single family. My understanding would be only if that were multifamily, but one would require.
But those folks would understand that that was that was the situation when they built, but the people that are currently there would not have to back directly up to it, is what I'm thinking, right?
No, they would. So these are
On
the
that
ones that are
side, yeah,
currently
on that
there. You
side.
see the houses that are there. This is the lot that's in question for rezoning.
Martin?
Yeah, I just want to remind folks that even with the zone change, we'd still have to go through the process of preliminary plat plan and a development plan. So even us approving the zone change tonight is just the beginning of the process. Who knows? I mean, you can anticipate 35 duplexes, but by the time you go through all that design and development and consideration of water retention ponds, it could look somewhat different.
Correct.
And that whole process, there is the opportunity for community input in that. If we do in fact make a zone change tonight, that's not the end of it. It's not the end of community and neighbors having input in what ultimately gets built there. I'll just say that.
Thank you, Martin.
Once again, on this side here, Amanda, where the houses are already on Central Avenue, did the gentleman just say that there would be R1 houses built back to them?
No.
No, okay,
All of that triangle that's in blue would be duplexes.
okay,
Where I was talking about single-family homes being built was on the west side of Central Park Avenue, to the right of the triangle, up where it intersects with Delaney and East Side Avenue.
right.
Down that side of Central Park Avenue would be single-family residences.
Okay, thanks.
So my question is that all the duplexes gonna be kind of built the same way as the houses?
Yes,
All
sir.
brick, I'm saying 80% brick, stuff like that?
Yes, sir. We
And
would
then
restrict
single
them in such a way that they would be required to have a certain percentage of brick,
story?
similar looks, et
Okay,
cetera.
and then single story?
Single story, yes,
Yeah, okay, let me make that clear.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, any comments from persons in the audience? Yes, please, come up and state your name and,
Ms. Davis has like a multi-point plan, so I'm gonna
Okay.
step in before she takes
okay.
that.
Would you first state your name and then we'll have to get you sworn in? It's a
Sure.
public hearing,
My name's Michael Seifert. I'm a resident at 144 Central Park Avenue.
okay?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir. Amanda, I submitted comments online. You don't have to read mine.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Michael Seifert.
Thank you.
You don't have to double it.
Okay.
I'm currently a resident at 144 Central Park Avenue, which if you look right at the bend, I am on the side that's not going to back up directly to the duplexes. So you might wonder what stake I have in it. However, I'm a frequent walker through this area. I walk my 2-year-old child through the area, and we recently, about a year ago, had to stop walking through the R3 zone. And part of that reason is there's not one single person who owns all of those apartments in there. Therefore, no one is keeping them the same. So you will have certain lots that will be grown up grass up to your waist that takes 4 or 5 calls to the city to get mowed. There'll be others that'll be great, but it'll also be filled with trash that no one picks up because who does that? You know, like people who rent there might take pride in it and might pick it up, but not usually. It's also covered in dog feces all the time because there's no one there to take responsibility for that which is there. So before myself and Miss Davis and any of the residents at Central Park get labeled as people who might be classist or don't want growth in Berea, we absolutely want to see that section filled in the middle. However, how it's filled is the real kicker. So those duplexes look phenomenal. They really do. And I would be more than happy to have those in my neighborhood. However, if those are going to be sold to individual buyers who are going to be able to individually rent them out, who polices them? And I'm sorry, that's a poor choice of words. Police is not. But who takes pride in those? You know, when someone rents a property, they're going to take as much pride as they can, but in the end, they don't own it. And so we've already heard from a gentleman who's putting 112 apartment buildings in Berea. Why can we not put 36 single-family houses in there? I looked as soon as the sign went up of selling my property and getting out and being out of there. And I can't because there's nothing to buy in Berea. And I make that point as there's nothing to buy in Berea. There's absolutely plenty to rent here. But there's plenty to rent here that's $1,200, $1,400, $1,500. And that's not what people need or what they're looking for. People are leaving Berea every single day to go to Richmond because housing in Richmond is almost $60,000 to $70,000 cheaper to buy. Now, I understand that's growth, that's supply and demand, that's what's here. That's what we've got. But you've got is it 14 acres, sir? 14.6 acres of prime land sitting there that has not been available to have any builder. I will tell you from personal anecdotal experience, Jared Carpenter built my home. When I asked him what was going across the street, he said, I'd love to put houses in there, but they won't sell it to me. So, is that true? I don't know. But there are developers who have wanted to put housing in there, wanted to put single family homes. Good luck building next to me, because it's nothing but an empty rock quarry that's going to take a lot of demolition to build. That's why people have not built there. If you survey that property, it's really not great plots of land, and if I were a builder, I wouldn't want to build there. Just too much work to get the single family house in there. So Ms. Davis will probably expand on this a lot. But no matter what the decision is, I don't want a Stony Creek fiasco to happen in here, where already people use Central Park Avenue as a throughway to get to 25. Totally fine. It connects, use it. However, speed limit is 25. Berea PD was kind enough to put a radar for us when I called and said, the speeding is out of control here. Like, I have a 2-year-old, I can't let him play in the front yard because people are going 60. Mind you, most of the people live in those apartments that are going 60. So they're not people that I know. They're not people that I can talk to. Berea PD placed it. However, they placed it about 200 feet from a stop sign. So by that point, everybody's already slowed down. I don't know what the findings were from that, but if we're going to be adding that many more vehicles that are going to be traversing Central Park Avenue, which connects to Delaney, which sits Shannon Johnson Elementary School, there has to be something done no matter what to address the safety concerns of the residents that are there. I mean, I don't know how expensive a speed bump is. I mean, I know a bag of concrete's $5, but I don't think you guys do it like that. So all of these things are probably going to be addressed in further detail, but I want to make it known that all of us on that street really want that lot filled, but we would absolutely love to see it filled with people who are able to purchase those homes and be a permanent part of our community, and not $1,500 duplexes, because I look at that picture and that's really nice, and I guarantee that's not going to be under $1,300. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. As you said, Mr. Richards, it's not the end of it here. But I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak and voice our opinion and concerns that we have, and just show that we actually do want the area to grow, but grow in an economically smart way. So, thank you.
What was your name, sir?
My name is Michael Seifert.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, yes.
My name's Teresa Grider. I live at 104 Central Park Avenue.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm here to speak in opposition to the requested zone change at 170 East Side Drive. The 14 acres currently zoned R1 should remain as such. Currently, there are 61 apartments, duplexes, and townhomes on Brooklyn Boulevard and Queensboro Street, with a combined 309 households in those units. Between Central Park Avenue, Delancey, and East Side Avenue, there are currently 39 single-family homes. This is 7.9 households in multifamily dwellings for every one single-family home on these 3 streets. The Terrace Nursing and Rehabilitation Facility is not included in these numbers. Now imagine how this impacts traffic. There are only 2 ways in and out for the residents of Central Park. That's Central Park Avenue to Brooklyn to Menelus Road, or Brooklyn to Central Park to Manus Street and Oakwood Drive via East Side Avenue or Delancey. Whether traveling east or west, Central Park Avenue carries that traffic. Last Friday, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., I counted 266 vehicles traveling on Central Park Avenue, an average of 33 cars per hour. This number does not include traffic that drops off and picks up students at Shannon Johnson Elementary because Madison County schools were closed that day. The 266 would easily double because of school traffic. How much worse will traffic be if more multifamily units are constructed, especially if there are no additional entrances and exits in that proposal? I believe this will make selling our homes more difficult. Being a single-family home in a majority multifamily neighborhood will not be seen favorably because, whether it's fact or myth, home buyers believe multifamily units decrease single-family property values. More multifamily units could be detrimental. Myself, I would not have purchased my home had I known in 2019 what I know now. Then there's codes and their enforcement. While homeowners must follow certain codes and regulations, from applying for building permits to renovate to keeping grass cut to a certain height, rental owners don't seem to be held to those same rules. trash cans and discarded furniture sit on curbs for days on Brooklyn Boulevard, it isn't hard to miss and it's not very appealing. Based on the current household counts, there's a significant imbalance in single-family versus multifamily housing in our subdivision. These 14 acres could become 42 beautiful single-family homes on 1/3 acre lots. I hope that you leave the current R1 zoning intact. Please do not completely bury our homes by allowing the construction of more multifamily housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Mindy Davis.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. I'm Mindy Davis. I'm resident of 180 Central Park Avenue, so I'm on the corner of East Side and Central Park. Lived there since August 2018. I'm also a realtor with Remax Elite Realty. Before I start with my prepared comments, I am a little confused on who the owner of the lot is.
The Oliver family heirs.
Okay, because I was told by a neighbor and city council member it was Bruce Cope. And then I was told by his son that his father had also bought it. So which is it?
The current owner is the Oliver heirs.
Okay. In the past 2 weeks, the lot being proposed for a zone change has been cleared. I was told the plan is to build 36 duplex lots by the son of Bruce Cope, similar to those by Arcadian Cove Senior Living in Richmond, some of which are owned but most serving as rentals. My concerns coming into this meeting include, I am aware of at least 2 neighbors along Central Park Avenue who did not receive the city's letter about this meeting, despite that being a requirement for the applicant to provide all addresses nearby. I don't see, like I said, the new lot owner. I'll disregard that point since that apparently is not true. There seem to be specific plans in place already, as if there has already been a zone change, and I'm not sure why that is. You've already got a site plan for 36 duplexes, but you don't have the zone change. The other developer mentioned that he wouldn't even go for that if he wasn't sure that that zone would be approved or not in Stony Creek. I'd also like to know if this is going to happen, will these duplexes be rentals or would they be offered for sale? Can that question be answered tonight?
They would be offered for sale.
To owners?
They may also be occupied by tenants. I'm not suggesting to you that they will all be occupied by owners of that particular building.
Okay. If built, will they be consistent in appearance with our homes, or will they be yet another style added to the random hodgepodge mix along Brooklyn Boulevard in Queensboro? Because I am a realtor, I have had neighbors call and text me with their questions. You've heard some of them tonight. What will be the effect on property values? Will duplexes impact the sale of the remaining R1 lots, which we know follows that curve up towards Bronx Place on the right side of that triangle? I personally hope the zone change is not approved, even though I believe duplexes are good housing options for many people. The concern is not the people who own or rent them, it's about how they would be designed, maintained, and how they would visually fit in with the rest of Central Park. If these are to be rentals, building them at such close proximity to our existing homes causes concern for many of us if they are not maintained or treated by tenants and management with the same level of care as an owner. What about traffic? You heard from her earlier how much traffic is impacting our area already. Shannon Johnson school traffic extends all the way along Central Park towards Brooklyn Boulevard. Duplexes will increase this traffic more so than single-family homes. What about safety? You heard Michael talk about safety issues. I have my own stories. Several of us have had safety concerns about Brooklyn Boulevard and Queensboro, some so bad we don't walk through the area. I don't walk or jog through there by myself anymore. I personally have seen a man passed out on the street and a man halfway in a dumpster off of Queensboro. His feet were off the ground, searching through trash. I'm a petite woman. My one German Shepherd doesn't like to run with me. I no longer feel safe going through there by myself. And that was probably 4 years ago that I stopped going through there on my own. I can't say who those men were or where they live, but I haven't seen such sights in our single-family home area. I do know that the zone change applicant must prove a few things before the request can be approved and passed to City Council according to KRS 100 statutes. The first thing to prove is that the zone change of R2 abides by the comprehensive plan. And he referenced this earlier, but I kind of differ from his thoughts. The 2010, 2020, and the future use zone maps in the city's adopted 2020 comprehensive plan show this lot is and remains, quote, low-density residential. I've got it circled. This is 2020. The light yellow, that whole area that's highlighted is R1 for residential. It was R1 in 2020. It was R1 in 2010. The comments recorded from the plan's public engagement sessions regarding housing allude to the desire of the public for more single-family homes. Quote, single-family dwelling lots are built out. Quote, there is limited availability of city land that can be built on. And 56% of them said the city needs more single-family housing. This is from people in Berea, not developers. These are public comments. The future use map shows that the 12-acre adjacent lot for sale at 2035 Brooklyn, which if you look up, it's kind of that green point right by Bronx. That lot is for sale. It's about 12 acres, changing from A1 to R1 low density. Again, that was the future use map. The future use map does indicate higher density housing should be along the bypass on both sides, not Central Park. Because that requested zone change is not in agreement with the comprehensive plan, KRS 100 then requires proof that one of the following applies. 1, that the existing zoning classification is inappropriate and that the new proposed zoning is more appropriate. So let's talk about that. The current R1 zone is not inappropriate. This roughly, you can see it, roughly triangular shaped lot has R1 homes and R1 lots on 2 of its 3 sides. The lot is not surrounded by commercial lots, industrial zone lots, or other types of lots where changing the R1 zone might make more sense. For example, in 2022, a vacant church in an R1 zone was approved by City Council, and I think actually the Planning Commission had not voted for that to change, but City Council revised that decision to change it to B2 because it made more sense that it could serve as an event venue and because of its proximity to Chestnut Street and other businesses. It's R1, we're surrounded by R1. I don't see how you can say that leaving it R1 is inappropriate. Central Park, including the lot under consideration, was meant to be a single-family neighborhood, and most importantly, was marketed to all of us who bought homes here that it would remain that way. When I moved in, I was told, yes, that there are single lots along Central Park Avenue. I was told that the roads would extend through and that neighborhood would be built up as a single-family neighborhood. I think we all might have been told that. If we had good realtors, we were told that. So, it feels like a bait and switch to me. There is no proof the current zoning is inappropriate. How could anyone agree that leaving it as a single-family housing zone is inappropriate? The only person for whom the current zone is inappropriate is the owner, who has financial interest in the zone change, especially if the duplexes are rented. Because it can't be proven that the existing zoning is inappropriate, the only other way the zone change can be approved is if there is proof that number 2, quote, there have been major changes of an economic, social, or physical nature within the area which were not anticipated in the adopted comprehensive plan and which have substantially altered the basic character of the area, and that's what he spoke to earlier. He said that there was a socioeconomic change, and the only comment I heard was that is because there's other R3 areas. Okay, there was I-2 was behind those of like where Michael and a few other people live on this side of Central Park, backs up to where Motor Wheel is. That's always been I-2. Okay, 2010 shows that whole area is R1. Okay, and he said that there's no demand for single-family lots, but then he goes on to say that if it is approved, he would They would build duplexes in the middle, and then they would build single-family homes, but I thought they said there was no demand for single-family homes. Did anyone else hear that? I'm not sure. They've sat vacant because no one has developed it. So obviously there is a need if the developer wants to develop them there, if he gets his zone change approved. So back to economic, social, or physical changes. Berea has seen new businesses join the city and others expand, but the conversation must apply to our area. Not across highway, off of exit 77, not downtown at Chestnut Street, but here in Central Park. The comprehensive plan was adopted in late 2020. I think it was October. It was amended and approved in December. So what happened in less than 3 years that has altered our area? Some could say, well, we didn't know what would happen with the housing market then. We didn't know inflation would reach unusual levels. Those are changes of an economic nature and were not anticipated. So is it possible you have found proof for number 2 and can proceed with approving the zone change? Surely we need fewer single-family homes because there is no demand for them, especially not during inflation, and that's what he is alluding to. As a realtor, I have proof that isn't true. I pulled this, I think, Sunday or Monday night. This is from Realtor Property Resource through the National Association of Realtors. Market trends for Berea. Seller's market, buyer's market. We're currently in a seller's market. That means there is demand for single-family homes. Months of inventory, 1.75. That means if all the current single-family home inventory, it would take that 1.75 months to completely sell out if nothing new is added. And it takes just 13 days on market for a home to go pending. I have family in St. Augustine, Florida, one of the fastest growing areas of that state. They are brokers with Coldwell Banker. And I was there in August and I asked them casually, like, hey, how long are houses staying on the market here? And they said, oh, about 4 months. And I was blown away. So I pulled up their data. They're moving towards a balanced market. Their average days on the market is 53. We are 13. St. Augustine, Florida is 53. It would take 5 months of inventory, 5 months to sell through all the single-family homes in Florida. Berea's 1.75. So does that surprise you that homes in Berea have more demand than a highly desirable area of Florida? There also has not been a physical change to this area, nor has the basic character of this area changed. So the way I read it, it has to have an economic, social, or physical nature, a change to that, and it has to have substantially altered the basic character of the area, and I don't think he proved that. We aren't seeing our homes degrade. We're not seeing them lower in value. They're not falling into disrepair due to our inability to afford the repairs. There is no change to our character of Central Park. Before I conclude, I want to say that he talked about infrastructure, duplexes would allow that, that those lots have not sold. There's no demand for them, apparently. That whole street, Central Park, when I moved in August 2018, there were 3 homes. So in 5 years, that whole street was built and sold, but there wouldn't be demand along Central Park, or if that lot was changed to R1 and someone bought it and developed it as single family, you mean to tell me that there wouldn't be demand? I don't believe that's true. He mentioned that, duplexes would be good in the quote, nice, clean area, and we feel that there would be really nice neighborhood in that nice, clean area with single family homes. He mentioned the news article that Donna Angel referenced. Of course, there's a lot of rentals that have been quick to rent out. Is that because there aren't enough single-family homes in our area? It's possible. Do we need more rentals off of exit 77 and now Stony Creek and now apparently Central Park if they're going to be maybe a mix of rentals or a mix of ownership? We don't know for sure yet. So in conclusion, it should be apparent we have valid concerns over this possible zone change. It is more apparent, however, that there isn't enough solid evidence to support the KRS mandates. And again, it is those mandates that allow you, the commission, to say yay or nay to the zone change request and send it to city council. I don't think that there is enough evidence to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Are there other comments?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I had 4 others that were submitted via email.
Okay.
So first is from Billy and Brenda Bales at 189 East Side Avenue. We purchased our East Side Avenue home from Doug and Roger Oliver and Bruce Cope Builder, Cool Homes, Inc. over 24 years ago. Not only did they build our home, but many others in the neighborhood. Along with our home purchase came restrictions to live in Central Park subdivision. We have always loved our neighborhood and have, along with our neighbors, gladly followed all guidelines. We respect our neighbors and our neighborhood. We have watched all the back part of Central Park be developed. The first built apartments on Brooklyn Boulevard near Millis have not been kept up by their owners. Please take a drive through the neighborhood. The newer homes recently built and sold on Central Park Avenue are a beautiful addition to our neighborhood. We cannot understand why homes like these cannot continue to be built at 170 East Side Avenue. There are plenty of prospective homeowners that would love an affordable home in the area of Berea. Selling homes in Central Park is certainly not a problem. As soon as a home is placed on the market, it sells very quickly. The demand for affordable homes is there. Rezoning will place the single-family building lots along Central Park Avenue in jeopardy. The lots are short, and this would cause future homes to be up against duplexes. Because of this, we fear for the future of the R1 lots as well. This is also very unfair to the many families that have recently purchased new homes on Central Park Avenue. Their backyard privacy will be changed, and it will affect their home value as well. Rezoning will also bring more residents into this small residential area and create a bigger traffic problem for street intersections at US 25 from Highland, Oakwood, Baugh, and Manus Streets. Also for intersections at Millis Pike from Central Park Avenue and Brooklyn Boulevard. There's currently a school traffic problem twice daily in this area. Some residents cannot get in or out of their own driveways because they are blocked with lined up school traffic. We do not want the same problem as the one currently on US 25 at Stony Creek, Wildwood Drive, that the area has been overbuilt and cannot safely accommodate the entrance or exit the heavy traffic onto a state highway. We further ask for consideration that East Side Avenue not be connected to Brooklyn Boulevard, but to connect to the circular streets that it was intended to join. If the connection joins to Brooklyn Boulevard, this will cause a flow of cut-through traffic in an R1 residential Central Park subdivision neighborhood. Speed bumps will then definitely need to be installed. We are longtime residents and homeowners on East Side Avenue and pray that good judgment will be used in your decision-making. Please think of this as if it were your home community and how it would affect your home life and investment. And the second is from Piper Seyfried, Central Park resident. Below are my comments and concerns regarding the rezoning of Central Park to R2. I believe the remaining undeveloped properties should be zoned R1 for the following reasons. Traffic. With the elementary school, I don't think that means elementary school. With the elementary school, we already have a lot of traffic each day, including stop traffic for the pickup line blocking driveways. The area will be significantly more congested with vehicles from 72 individual duplex residences versus half that number of single-family homes. Speeding is a big problem on this road, and despite Berea PD's efforts with real-time speed signs, cars continue to travel well over the speed limit. If the city wants to significantly increase the number of homes in this area, we need to ensure traffic can move through and that it is safe to drive through the neighborhood. I would love to see school traffic redirected and speed bumps to alleviate this. Cleanliness and overall neighborhood appearance. The landlords for apartments on Brooklyn Boulevard are not maintaining their properties, and many have fallen into disrepair. The landscaping is not maintained. The grass grows waist high part of the year. Mailboxes are crumbling or temporary structures support them. Broken down cars are parked in front of the buildings. Trash and litter are strewn through the streets and parking lot every week on trash pickup day. No one cleans this up. The sidewalks are also covered in dog feces, making the area unwalkable. The single-family homes on Central Park Avenue are very well maintained. Adding more poor quality housing does not help Berea families or the Central Park community. Safety. I was attacked while 7 months pregnant by a full-grown German Shepherd while I was walking down Brooklyn Boulevard. This happened in the middle of the day. Berea PD was unable to do anything about the matter. There are many dogs that roam off-leash in the area because they don't have an appropriate fenced area for pets, and landlords do not impose any restrictions. I don't feel safe walking through the area with my family because of this experience. Many homeowners on Central Park also have pets, but I've never seen them off-leash outside their own yard. With the addition of heavy traffic and speeding, this could make the rest of Central Park unsafe and unwalkable. Promoting a family community. The high cost of renting does not address Berea's affordable housing crisis, nor does it help families settle in Berea. Similar duplexes in Berea are being rented for well above the cost of a monthly mortgage. Berea needs to address the housing shortage with more permanent housing instead of high-cost rentals to help low-income families and promote a stable community. Adding more rental properties will also discourage more families from purchasing properties in Central Park. Central Park is currently zoned appropriately for single-family homes, which is what Berea needs. Please do not rezone this community. The next from Leonard and Cindy Coleman at 221 Delancey. I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting addressing the zone change of 170 Eastside Avenue. As residents of Central Park, my wife and I are against the zoning change of the 14 acres from R2 to R1. I lived in an R2 duplex for 2 years. In that time, our 14 duplex units had 2 drug raids with AR-15s, 2 hit and runs of cars parked in their driveways, 2 domestic assaults that required police and medical care, and 1 drug fatal drug overdose. The units were not in a bad or low rent area. Rents were from $8.75 to $13.50 without utilities, depending on how long you had lived there. People that live in duplexes are passing through, not building a community. If the owners of the property would sell the lots that are developed and develop the remaining area zone R1, this area would be full of single-family homes. I wanted to buy one for the last 2 years, but they are not for sale due to an heirship issue. I would like to know the zoning history of 170 Eastside Avenue. The only zone change I can find is on 1207, change 118, ordinance 1207 from I2 to R3. How do I find a copy of that ordinance and the zoning history? Is there a state law that says once a property has been a certain zone and changed to another zone, that the local government cannot stop and change back to the original zone? If so, what revised statute is it? If you cannot stop it, please follow the front, side, and rear setbacks of the Central Park plat, including the right-of-ways, all brick veneer exterior, 2 covered parking spots, and 2 off-street parking spots. And this is the last one. From Stephen Hobbs at 196 Bronx Place. Dear council members, I will not be attending the meeting tonight concerning the zoning change in Central Park. Our church is in revival. However, I want to share with you my opposition to the proposed zoning change. First, the increase of traffic. the streets in Central Park are not designed to carry the traffic load that multiple apartment buildings would bring to the subdivision. Cars speed through the area now. Stop signs are ran and rolled through. Shannon Johnson traffic is very heavy. As a resident of Central Park, I have several near misses of collisions. More apartments would make it much worse. Second, is there any potential financial gain? This is not in any way accusatory statement, but does any council member have an involvement or potential financial advancement in the building of apartment buildings? If so, the public needs to know. Third, our past assurances. We built our home and took residence there in 1999. We were assured that it was zoned for single-family dwellings. A vote to change that assurance would be an unfair action toward the homeowners who spent thousands of dollars buying their lots and building their homes. We built and kept the codes and guidelines for our subdivision. Our property values would decrease sharply if the zone is changed. The city should keep its word to its citizens. I strongly oppose the rezoning of Central Park. I urge you to vote no.
Thank you, Amanda.
Winger, I have just
Yes.
responses, if I may.
Sure.
And I'll promise to be quick. One, the way that we intend to keep this area nice, for lack of a better word, is by properly restricting it. By restricting it to brick duplexes that have garages that are similar in nature, limiting where fences and those kind of things can be, and requiring that they be maintained after they're purchased. Just like the houses along Central Park Avenue are restricted, and that's part of the reason that they stay nice. We're going to restrict this in such a way that it will stay nice. Ms. Davis made two comments, and the other folks made two comments I just want to respond to. My comments about demand for single-family residences related to the lots along Central Park Avenue on the east and west sides. Those have been platted, zoned, and restricted for some number of years, and there have been no houses constructed there. That suggests to me that for whatever reason, there is not a demand to construct those, has not been a demand to construct those on that street. But this prospective purchaser, if you approved our change, will come in and construct homes there and market those and try to clean up this entire area. The other thing that I hear repeatedly is about Queensboro Street and the R3 area at the top. It seems that most of the objections are related to that area, and we don't want to build a Queensboro Street and a Brooklyn Boulevard. We want to build a nice duplex area where people maintain their properties and can afford to live. I don't know how you can say that area is not safe to enter into, but at the same time, say there's not been a change of this area as a result of that rezoning. And last, can you pull up that little exhibit that shows the, last thing I'd like to do is just again pull up the exhibit that shows all the surrounding zoning. I think Ms. Davis made a comment that they were surrounded by R1 zoning, and I'd like for you to just look at what's all around this area. So the blue to the south is I-2, to the west, the tan is R3, the blue is I-2, to the north is R3. The only single-family residential area here is to the east in what was the original part of the Central Park development, other than that one street of Central Park Avenue. So they are surrounded by schools, industrial zones, and multifamily residential areas. I don't think I misrepresented that. Okay, that's the only point I want to make. So we ask that you approve our rezoning to R2. We will build what I've represented to you from the drawings. We will properly restrict those and do everything we can to make sure that the remainder of this development is done in a aesthetically pleasing way and a way that will remain that way into the future. We do not want the Queensboro Street apartment buildings.
Stuart, let me ask you a question. So are these going to be sold or are they going to be rented?
They will be sold to third-party purchasers would be my guess. That third-party purchaser may occupy one part and rent the rest, or they may rent both of the units.
But they would be deed restricted?
They would be deed restricted before they were sold, yes.
Okay.
so that the facades, the maintenance, the where fencing was allowed, what the other things that were allowed would be not exactly the same as a single-family residence, but more in line with a single-family residential area. There probably are no restrictions in the R3 area.
I'd like to say too, I think one of the misconceptions that we have here as the person that manages 29 rentals and as a realtor myself for 10 years, I can tell you that apartments and duplexes do have to go by requirements. They do have to go by the same set of regulations. They will get fined. They do get in trouble if the grass gets tall. They may not see everything, the city may not see everything, but I can tell you that we have gotten letters, and other property managers that I know have gotten letters, so we do have to go by the same set of standards, just to clear that up. There is a set of standards to go by, so.
Yes, we'll be subject to the same zoning ordinances and all those ordinances that you all have, as would anybody else. Thank you all. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. The gentleman who has, okay. Please come so you can be on record.
Mindy Davis again. I still have concerns because in the PVA, it is recognized that the Oliver heirs are still the owner. Why was I told by a city council member that Bruce Cope purchased the lot 3 weeks ago? And why did his own son tell me? I'm the one that you talked to when you're clearing the lot, if you remember. I probably look a little better in real clothes, not my gym clothes, but you said that your dad bought the lot. So why is there that discrepancy?
I think I can address that, Ms. Davis. As I've indicated, the Oliver heirs.
Would you go to the mic so you can be on?
Sorry, Ms.
Thank you.
Hollinger.
That's okay.
As I indicated in my discussion, the Oliver heirs are the current owners of this property, but if this zone change is approved, there is a contract where they would sell it to a third-party purchaser. That may answer your questions.
So having two people tell me that it's already been purchased is incorrect?
That's correct.
Okay. Why would a city council member tell me that?
Bad information, unfortunately.
They just misunderstood the fact.
Because he's also a neighbor.
They just misunderstood the fact.
I think we have some questions about that. And I don't understand why the lot at R1 is inappropriate.
That is not one of the items that they have chosen for the application. So that in the 3 ways that they have, that you can prove a zone change, inappropriately zoned is not one of the 3 that they have chosen to.
So strictly on the economic? The socioeconomic change is what they applied for?
No, in the application, they have stated that they, just for, as a recap to the commission as well, the first way, the first thing that the commission's job is to determine if the zone change is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. And while in this case, they are not choosing that, as you've proven, it's not in compliance with the future land use map, but more so in this way with the text itself. And so those items of the text are from the 2020 comprehensive plan under land use. And the items in the application I mentioned were that, and I'm actually going to read a little bit from the comprehensive plan just so we all gather what's trying to be said here. As the city grows, residents will have increased need for goods and services, and these goods and services may include a variety of housing types with ranges and sizes and costs in a mix of commercial, retail, office, and industry. The comprehensive plan map defines where areas where the community as a whole would like each of these goods and services to locate. Guidelines and general criteria that may be helpful when considering future development proposals may include, and these are some of the things that they pointed out: adjacency to existing infrastructure and public services, functional and aesthetic use of the development site, variation of residential product type, location, and lot sizes. Let's see, let me see what else was circled in the application. Give me just a second. Support, so this goes on to, support the development of public and private facilities that encourage Berea residents and students to walk or bicycle when possible by providing interconnected and safe sidewalks, trails, bikeways, street crossings, and proposed and existing developments, so that's a connectivity, part of that. And encourage a mix of housing densities and types that adequately serve the economic and lifestyle requirements of the Berea community. And then the second way that they have put in their application for the justification of the zone change is that, that there's been a substantial change in the area. So basically that third option, it says a substantial change in the area since portions of the development were zoned R3. Initially, the entire development was zoned R1. Prior rezoning of portions of the development has changed its character. The property is now surrounded by mostly I2 and R3, with only a few R1 lots adjoining, and the rezoning of the subject tracts to R2 will provide a buffer between the different zones. So that was given on the application.
Okay.
And also, part of the application process is to provide a plan, a proposal. Everybody that comes before us provides a proposal, so it looks as if it's already a plan for all of them. So there's nothing shady about that either. We get that on all of them, all the requests. So.
I would just like to say that, you know, we aren't Stony Creek. That was meant to be a planned urban development. You've already heard their concerns. One of the ladies showed me that what they were shown would be at the planned duplex is not anything like what the architecture said it would look like. So the pictures that we saw look great. We have no proof that they will look that way. And I'll say that we've all addressed concerns with the low maintenance of the current R2 area and the R3 area. You know, yes, that has been a character change because it's gone downhill. So is that reason to make this last potential lot of a single family home that could be a great neighborhood, is that reason enough to change it and had that possibly go downhill? We can hear their words and it'll be great, it'll be nice and clean. It is nice and clean already as a single family home area. And the one email that you read from Leonard and Cindy Coleman at 221 Delancey, they just purchased about 3 or 4 months ago. So I'm sure that they have some heartache over hearing that the home that they just bought is now going to be potentially close to an area that they left. So I think that is some of their anger there. But, you know, I understand the points about there are other zones around us, but we weren't meant to be a planned urban development with different types of housing. We all bought our properties on the assumption, and we were told that it would be a developed neighborhood. 2020, the city adopted a plan that said it would remain R1. What happened in 3 years? I don't want to see that area go downhill, and I would love to see great duplexes built and maintained. Even if you rent them and put restrictions, it doesn't mean tenants are going to abide by that. And right now, I don't know who to contact necessarily of the current apartment buildings and the current units on Brooklyn that go downhill. I don't even like to walk through that area.
So the code
So
and
who
planning
do we
office
contact?
has an online complaint form for any property maintenance or nuisance violation. I did because I just kind of saw that trend in those public comments I was getting at 4 o'clock today. So I did pull our just our complaints. And while I would love to tell you that we had just one codes officer dedicated to just the cleanliness of Berea, unfortunately, that's just not the problem. I mean, that's just not the issue, the way it is. So all of The codes office shares a lot of different responsibilities, and most of the time it is complaint-based. Our last complaint, actually, the only one in 3 years, was on, in March of 2022, and it was on Brooklyn Boulevard for some trash. But we do send our Public Works Department to go through there. Again, just as we kind of see that it's bad, to do just a pickup of the trash that we see just left on the roadsides. But there is an online complaint form. You can also call the office, and we will investigate those. We will contact the property owners, have them address the violation, or we will either, and if they don't, we will either abate it as a city, send them the bill, or we will issue a fine to that property owner.
Okay, thank you. And then I would also like to ask for clarification. I called a local realtor who had at one point a sign up coming from Oakwood onto Delancey outlining the Central Park lots that are for sale, like the ones that are across from my house, the ones along Central Park. And I asked him, are those still for sale? Haven't seen that sign up. And he said no, because there is an issue with the Oliver Heirs and an LLC that they can't be sold. So, some of the debate has been there's been no demand for housing along that area, but they're not, from what I've been told, for sale. But yet if this gets approved, then the developer will build the lot. So there is demand for single-family housing, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I think I've said enough. And hopefully my blood pressure has come down a little bit, but I really do think that, there was some fishiness coming into this about who's the owner, who's not the owner, why all of a sudden is the lot being cleared. I think many of us felt like it's already been a done deal. We felt like this was not, and I know I've called you personally, man, and you said it's not a done deal, that we have to go by this process. But it's just very kind of fishy.
Something that the codes office had asked of the property owners,
Okay.
for quite some time.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Yes.
Hey, good evening. Jason Mays, 148 East Side Avenue. I live basically right beside Mindy.
Okay.
I just wanted to give an...
Just a second, we have to swear
Oh, I'm
you
sorry.
in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely. I just want to give another face, and some of the things that were said, nothing that was said is untrue. All of those things I would never allow my children to walk. And I live very close to where they're talking about. Would never allow my children to walk over there. And you're kind of reinforcing the idea that, well, nobody's complaining. Well, obviously, doesn't matter if you complain, because that field's been overgrown for a decade. So what's complaining to you, right? So, I work for a company where I deal with a lot of marketing. For every complaint you get, there's exponential growth of who isn't complaining, they're keeping their mouth shut. No one here come up to say, please, Lord, let them do this. Not one. This benefits a very few and hurts the many. We have been told that, well, we regret that bad information got to you. The information we all had was that's R1, it was going to be R1, and we were told it was going to stay R1. We were lied to, apparently, if this goes through. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Okay. I would like to read from the Land Management and Development Ordinance. The information regarding KRS 102.1. The requirements of this development ordinance are based on recommendations included in the Berea Comprehensive Plan, KRS 100 2.1, requires that before any amendment to the official zoning map is granted, the Planning Commission must first find that the proposed map amendment is in agreement with the comprehensive plan. So the question is the proposed map, plan in agreement with the comprehensive plan, which is a R1? Is that correct? Okay. Or in the absence of such finding, meaning we find that it is not in agreement, that the original land use classification given to the property was inappropriate and that the proposed land use classification is appropriate. Or B, that there have been major changes of an economic, physical, or social nature within the area involved which are not anticipated in the adoptive comprehensive plan and which have substantially altered the basic character of such area. So, we as a planning commission have to look at those, and I think Amanda read several other things which were in the comprehensive plan. But in order to approve or not approve a request for a zone change, we have to go by these three things. First, is the proposed plan proposed in the comprehensive plan? And I think Amanda had indicated a couple of times that in 2020 it is proposed as R1 for that particular area.
For the future land use.
For future land use map R1. Okay, so that is in absence of that finding, we have to ask, was the original land classification given to the property inappropriate? Okay, and that the proposed is appropriate, or that there have been major changes of economic, physical, or social nature that have altered the basic character of such areas. We as a planning commission will have to make a decision. I would like, or we can vote to approve or not approve or defer action or et cetera. We can make any of those actions on this proposal. I think it is important that we want each planning commissioner to look at that and identify, because we have to do findings of fact. There must be findings of fact when we make this decision. So I will ask if the other planning commissioners, if you would like to ask questions or if you have comments, or where do we go from here? Yes, sir.
Thank you all for turning out tonight and expressing your opinions. This is really hard when this has happened in your backyard, right? And yet, it is an example of some of the prime issues we are facing in our community, right? I think we feel that we need more housing, and especially affordable housing in Berea. Our last comprehensive plan in 2020, and by the way, we're coming up on having to revisit that. In our last comprehensive plan, we debated about how much time that we could afford to put into looking specifically at housing. And, for better or for worse, at that time, we decided not to go into that. Probably had more to do with economics than anything. But I think it's clear that as we go into this next comprehensive plan, that we need to focus on housing in Berea. What is the assessment of our housing, right? What is the demand for housing? What is the affordability of housing? all of those things. I think we need that. We need it desperately, given the opinions expressed tonight. And I'm tell you right now, as I've probably expressed to Amanda, I am going to personally work on that in the next comprehensive plan on housing. There are a couple other things I want to comment upon. One, I don't think, and Lord, I haven't read this word for word for, well, honestly, since 2020. But, low density is not exclusively single family. So I look at the comprehensive plan, and for this particular, area of town, it is both listed as single residency. It's also listed as low density, but in some of the maps also lists some of the R3 area as formerly low density. So we're in a funny thing here, funny area here. The other part of it is, and I want to thank Michael, is it Cipher? Oh, I'd have to see it written out in order to pronounce this, so my apologies. I think you brought up some really good issues here. I mean, one of it is economics drive it. Somebody mentioned, like, Lord, I wouldn't want to build there because the soil is rocky and all that stuff like that, right? It's not for me to say, and it's not for us to judge the economics of it. It's the market that's going to do it, and the developers who are going to take the risk. Perhaps the developer will come in and say, I cannot, because of the condition of this property, I cannot develop it and get a return on my investment for a single family house. But if I do a duplex, I can make it work. I can make the numbers work. Again, it's not up to us to determine those kind of economics here. And it is fact, it is the economics that drive the style of development in any kind of development. I think for better or for worse, Stony Creek has been referenced a number of times tonight. It's become the pariah, I think, unfortunately, for Berea. But you also heard that, like, nobody, in Stony Creek, while he's developing the front but also the back, he's not going to do anything that's going to determine, is undercut the market value of existing or future houses up there. So that market piece is a key, and again, we have to trust the developers are going to develop property that can economically be developed. Sometimes we see when we get these requests to keep approving letters of credit over and over and over again, somebody probably didn't do their homework on their math and those economics of it. And I will say that from my personal experience in my neighborhood, is we have a rental maintenance and upkeep issue in this community. And more often than not, I see is when it's not complexes that multiple units are owned by one entity. It's this one house that somebody has bought and is renting out, and they don't keep it up. I can see 5 in my own neighborhood that is the case. And I think we as a community, need to take steps to ensure that the quality of rental units are, one, safe for our citizens, because a number of them are not safe, right? And I think we have to think through what is the process for ensuring that rental units are safe, are affordable, are maintained, for everybody's sake here. And from my perspective, I don't think we're doing a good job in this community to do that. So I appreciate that's pointed out. I could probably go on and on, but anyway, I won't. But I appreciate everything that's been said. Madam Chair, I am also going to recognize it is 8:15. Speaking for myself, after a long day, I'm not sure that my mind is as sharp as I would like it to be to consider all these questions. I would make a move that we table this issue until our next meeting.
There has been a motion made that the decision to grant a change of zone for this particular area be tabled until our next meeting. Oh, did I have a second? I'm sorry. Did I get a second on that?
When is the next meeting?
What is the second Tuesday in
Yeah, and I'm
October? Thank you. That's a month. That's a
I'm
month.
not gonna be here for that meeting. I had prior plans for that second Tuesday, but Brian Reed will be filling in my absence. So we will be having a meeting, or as far as I know, we're having a meeting the second Tuesday in
Okay,
October,
which is normally our work session.
which is normally our work session.
Our business session is really not, we're not scheduled to have a business session until October 24th.
Correct.
Okay.
Just for information.
And excuse me just a second. There has been a motion, so the motion dies for lack of second? Okay. Now,
All I wanted to say is I will be traveling on that second Tuesday, and I would hope we could move it to the next meeting after that. And it sounds like that's when your business meeting would be anyway.
okay, but it didn't, we're not tabling it, we're moving forward. Okay, all right. I would like for any other commissioners to make their comments, and yes, while it is 8:15, I feel that it's important, this is an important decision, and I feel like that we should be able to make this recommendation. It is not, we're recommending to the city council, whatever it is.
I think everybody did a good job stating in their cases. I know the proposed developer, I know his character, and I know these folks, do what they say, and but also looking at the facts, hearing the management ordinances and the different facts and things of that nature, and seeing and knowing the area the way that I do. I guess I feel differently. I do not want to see this change. I'd like to see this stay the same. And so I would make a motion that we deny the request at this time.
And the denial is based upon, we have findings of fact, so based upon
Based upon the way the map is,
comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan, and
Okay, classification. The proposed zone change is not in agreement with the comprehensive plan. Is that what that first finding of fact is?
that's correct.
Okay.
I understand, yes.
And since it is not, then we have to go to the other two that says the original classification is inappropriate, and that is not the case. Is that what we're saying? Okay. And the second, that there's been major changes in economic, physical, social, that's altered the basic character of that area.
Correct.
We're saying that it's not correct, okay? It has been moved in second. It's been moved, excuse me, it has been moved. Okay. It has been moved in second that the planning commission will deny the proposed change for, well, let me get my notes here. For 170 East Side Avenue, we declined that zone change request based upon the proposed zone change is not in agreement with the comprehensive plan, and that the original classification is appropriate, and that there's not been major changes, economic, physical, social, that altered the basic characteristics of the above, of the area. That's the motion and second. All in favor of the motion?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, that is our recommendation to city council. Okay, all Anything else? We're gone? Okay. Then, at 8:20, I have a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion with adjourn.
Moved in second. All in favor? Off we go. Aye. Thank you very much.
Opposed?
Okay. And I too want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I really appreciate